Willie D live.
On December 12th, a group of individuals, again, members of this anti-government group, traveled out to the desert to test their explosive devices. They had precursor chemicals there, and they were going to create these bombs in the desert. What they are starting to do is put their chemicals and wares and the components out on the table there. This footage that you're watching is from our surveillance plane, and then what happened after this is the Los Angeles FBI SWAT team, along with the FBI's hostage rescue team, moved in and arrested all 4 subjects without incident.
So now we'll take some questions.
You mentioned these 5 companies. Can you get more specific about
Yeah, we're not naming the victim companies, but I'll generally describe them as logistic centers. You can think of like Amazon-type logistic centers, but we're not naming the specific companies at this time.
Can you elaborate on the locations?
There were at least 5 locations that they intended to target within Orange County and Los Angeles County. Again, we're not giving out the specific sites, but they were willing and...
We're listening to officials out in California updating on what they say was a foiled terror plot planned for New Year's Eve. The head of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California says officials arrested 4 members of a far-left anti-government domestic terror cell who self-identify as the Turtle Island Liberation Front. The officials say the arrest happened Friday after the group tried to construct and detonate IEDs out in the desert. I want to bring in our contributor, former FBI agent Brad Garrett, for more on that. Brad, what do you make of what they're saying so far, that they stopped this attack before it happened, that it was planned for New Year's Eve, and that this group planned to detonate a number of explosive devices?
So it strikes me this is another undercover operation potentially. In other words, there was at least an agent or an informant in with this group, because how would you know to run aerial surveillance unless you had somebody on the ground telling you that was about to occur? So that's the ideal place you want to be. We've heard about it multiple times in terrorism plots where an informant or an individual works an FBI undercover agent into the scenario, and then they start recording and get a lot of incriminating information. But it's also the way, Diane, you just stop these attacks. We say countless times, you can't stop something unless you know about it. And this one, they knew about it. And were able to, once they collected the information, the intelligence, the evidence they needed, but obviously before any attack, they made the arrest. So it looks like hats off to them.
All right, fam. By a show of hands, who believes them? Give me a thumbs up if you believe this report. If you believe that this is not propaganda, this actually happened. We had some anti-Israeli people out there that planned an attack on the U.S. on New Year's Eve. They're coming for your head, and you should be scared. Give me a thumbs up if you believe this report. Thumbs down if you say, nah, man, nah, I'm not falling for the banana in the tailpipe again. I can't trust it. I'll give you a few moments to think about it. Okay, time's up. Family, here's my thoughts on that. First and foremost, I have to put this in historical context because I just don't believe anything this government says. I don't believe. And anytime I hear the government, someone speaking on behalf of the government, I hear the opposite as the truth. I'm just wired like, and look, fam, this is not coming out of nowhere. This is years of conditioning. This is years of evidence. But, allow me to put it in historical context. Historically, the FBI founder J. Edgar Hoover widely used propaganda and other covert counterintelligence measures as a consistent and significant part of its operations, particularly through the controversial COINTELPRO program. These efforts were intended to disrupt, discredit, and destroy domestic political groups perceived as threats. Disrupting groups. The FBI actively sought to exploit all avenues of creating further dissension among targeted groups, such as the Black Panther Party, to weaken them internally. They did no such thing to the KKK. The Bureau pressured networks. Listen to this, fam. They pressured networks to dismiss progressive workers, compiled blacklists, and worked to control how it was portrayed in the media, contributing to a high public approval rating during Hoover's era. Targeting individuals, the FBI engaged in extensive surveillance and covert operations against civil rights leaders, including Martin Luther King Jr., with the goal of discrediting him among the public and government officials. So we know this stuff is still going on, right? We know that the government has a long, sordid history of making things up, making things appear to be one thing when they're really something else. I mean, they go as far as mock funerals, mock executions, assassinations, killing U.S. citizens, framing U.S. citizens, destroying U.S. citizens' lives. Family, I wish I could say that that was the past and we have grown. I wish I could put this in modern context and say that in recent years, the nature of the FBI's engagement has shifted and that they were focusing more on public focusing more on public transparency. But nah, man, I don't believe it. I'm not trusting none of it. I'm not trusting none of it. And I don't believe that 9/11 was a foreign attack. I don't believe it. More and more evidence comes out every day that supports 9/11 being a staged act. It was staged. Now, people were killed. Believe that. That was real. Thousands of people did die. But it's just too many little things that happened, too many alleged coincidences. No. Nah, man. I don't trust it. I do not trust it. Now, why would you guys, someone would say, well, why would the government go through all of this stuff? Why would they be trying to make it seem like somebody who is sympathetic of Palestine would be trying to make an attack on the U.S.? Well, perhaps it has something to do with the fact that somebody wants to make us believe that so that when they ride on Palestine, nobody cares. After all, they tried to ride on us, right?